welcome to this video. And in this video, we are talking about more situations of exponential growth and decay. But here, what we're looking at is when your growth is in terms of a percentage, or in some cases, you can have decay in terms of a percentage. And so before we were talking about growth in terms of a quantity doubling, okay? But sometimes a quantity is growing. It is just growing in terms of a percentage. So, like for example, maybe a quantity is experiencing a 7% increase, okay? So, over your time t, okay, you are increasing by 7%. Make sure here when you use your R in the formula, you change that to the decimal version of that percent. So like right here, if the R value is 7%, you'll actually use 0.07 in your formula down here, okay? Same thing, if you're decreasing by a percent, you would just plug the R value in there and use subtraction. Continuous growth is a situation where um, you are building off of previous growth. And what you'll see a lot of times is they'll use a wording like relative growth rate or maybe relative decay rate. And like I said, this is where it's proportional to its size. So this one's more like if you, let's say you start with, say, 100 bacteria, okay, and you have a relative growth rate of 2%, okay. Well, 2% of 100 is 2, okay. And so now your new amount would be 102 because you started with 100, you had a growth of 2, and now you have 102. Well, now your 2% is calculated off of the 102. Okay, so now you're going to have a growth of 2.04. Okay, and you can see that this growth increased just a little bit, is a little bit more than the previous growth because you're working off of this amount here. And so now your new amount would be 104.04, right? Adding this 2.04 onto the 102. And then you still have the 2% growth, but it's 2% of this quantity here. And then that gives you a growth rate of, or a growth amount, I should say, of 2.0808. Okay, so you can see this growth here is relative to the amounts that you're starting with. Okay, and that's kind of what they're talking about here. And this is your formula. You will use E in the formula. For the R, similarly, you want to make sure you're using the decimal. So like if the growth rate was 2%, what you would plug in for R there would be 0.02, okay? Down here, if it's a relative decay rate, you want to just make sure you get that negative sign in there, okay? So we will talk through an example in maybe the next video, and I'll see you there.